Hi everyone, I'm Mr. Puckett. Thank you so much for checking out what's only my 10th YouTube video of all time. This is 20 Wholesome Things. I've got a helper with this channel that's picked out the 20 most wholesome things they have found in the last week, and today we're going to go through them together. We're going to process all of these emotions together, and hopefully by the end of this video, you'll feel just a little bit better than you did when you started the video. So without further ado, let's check out the first wholesome thing. All right, number one. Just saw a girl saying that when you take a picture of the moon or the sunset and it doesn't look as good in real life, you don't think the problem is the sky is actually ugly. You know the camera isn't fully capturing the beauty. And you should feel the same way about your selfies. I love that. You know, me especially, I hate taking selfies, and I don't even look in the mirror. I could probably count the times on one hand I've looked in the mirror in the past month. I have just as many insecurities as everyone, and you've even seen it come out in this video. What are we, 5 minutes into this point, and you've already seen it, and that was the sunglasses in the first segment. Now, I spent most of my life on drugs and alcohol, but I was still working. I still had friends and a family in the early stages, so I was hiding this from everyone, and it was such an anxiety-inducing thing to go to work on 60 ounces of gin and try to play it off like I hadn't been drinking. And lying to my friends and family every day, but you can see it in people's eyes, right? If you're using stimulants, your eyes are huge, or if you're drinking and smoking weed, your eyes are droopy and red, I guess. And that's something I was looking forward to when I got sober. Was clean eyes, so where I would feel good about when people looked at me, they knew I was sober. And I've worked so hard on my sobriety. I'm coming up on 3 years now, but I still have the insecurity about my eyes because I have bags under my eyes no matter how much I sleep, and they're a little droopy no matter what I do during the day. And that's the last thing in the world I want somebody to look at me and think was, you know, maybe he had something to drink last night, or he had something to smoke today. And it's a huge insecurity of mine, no matter how irrational it is. It's just something I hate looking in the mirror, and even watching these videos sometimes is one of my big fears. So I know we all have these irrational insecurities, but it helps to talk about them and get them out in the open, because it sounds so ridiculous now that I'm saying this. Of all the insecurities to have about my body, I have them about my eyes. But that's just the way it is. It doesn't make it, you know, any easier for me to deal with. So if you have some of these irrational insecurities, maybe let's hear about them in the comments. And then if you see one in the comments that relates to you, somebody says something that you go through as well, give them an upvote so they don't feel so alone. We are a community here that we're all going through very similar things, and it definitely helps to know that we're not alone. So take those selfies, get yourself on YouTube, look in the mirror all you want, and I just hope it gets better for everyone, and I hope it gets better for me too. So number one out of the bag, let's take a look at number two. All right, number two. Sometimes you need to put away your politics, your outrage, your bias, and just sit and look at the stars. We are more alike than we are unalike. Amazing, and Snoopy too. I can't tell you the last time I sat back and looked at the stars. I think that's indicative not only of living in the city and not really seeing a lot of stars here with all the light pollution, but also I'm much more of a morning person. That actually sounds pretty beautiful to sit out and watch the stars. I feel so alone when I do that. I feel so insignificant when I do that, but I love the last part of this, that we are more alike than we are unalike. If I learned one thing in all of the posts I did on Imager and all the millions and millions of views we got there and comments, was that as soon as I started to open up about my issues, I got all these thousands of messages of people saying how much they related to my issues. I held all of these things in for so long because I thought I was the only one going through them, and it made it so much easier for me when I realized that my problems weren't necessarily unique. Now, there might be different variables in what everyone else is going through, but there's only a certain amount of problems, and there's a whole lot of people in the world, and that's something I definitely learned in therapy, rehab, and psych wards too, is how similar all of our issues are. And if all of our issues are similar, then all of our successes are too. We do a Monday check-in on our Mr. Puckett on my subreddit, where people get to talk about their challenges and successes from the prior week and what we're looking forward to in the upcoming week. And you realize after doing so many of these that there's only a certain amount of answers before they all start to look the same, because we're all going through similar things. Now, your situation might be different than mine, but I can guarantee you that we've gone through some similar things in the past and that we will again in the future. So that's something very important to remember, especially on Twitter or Imager, when you see all this political hate and everybody arguing about their side, that if you look in the grand scheme of things, we have a whole lot more in common than we do difference from each other. So don't look at your neighbor of all the things that they do and love differently from you. Look at your neighbor as all the things they do and love similarly to you. And I guarantee you life will be just a little bit easier once you start doing that. That's a great number 2. I love it. Let's go check out the number 3 wholesome thing. All right, number 3. 6 years ago, I was a homeless junkie with nothing to live for. Now 4.5 years sober, just turned 30 last month, and I work at one of the correctional facilities I was locked up at. Recovery is possible. Look at the before and after picture too. Look how happy he is. I don't know that I have a before picture, an addiction picture, or even a mugshot, but I'll try to track one down so I can show the before and after too. I don't think many people out there would believe what I looked like before all of you got to know me within the past couple of years of my sobriety. And for somebody to go back and help out in a place where they needed help so badly is amazing. We often think of correctional officers, of COs, as being bad eggs. I think it's the same thing we've been dealing with police, where we see all of these negative aspects. We see the bad eggs all over the internet, but we don't see the good ones. And the correctional officers are the same way, whereas my experience in jail was probably a lot different than most people, because correctional officers were so helpful to me. I think maybe part of it was they realized I didn't exactly fit in jail where I was, because as soon as I got sober, I was just like this. I was happy-go-lucky, and I was trying to help as many people as possible. Whereas maybe 3 out of 4 of everybody else in there was picking fights and doing drugs, and it was a really horrific experience. So to have correctional officers on my side was such a huge thing, and one even stayed in touch after that. Maybe I'll do a video about that someday. So to see this guy overcome his addiction, I think is a good note for everybody, even if you haven't dealt with that before, or if you don't realize what a huge deal that is to overcome. That it is a benchmark that you can overcome really anything that you have power over. And if you're struggling with something over there, I hope you take this as a tip that if I can get over drugs and alcohol and something I struggled with for 20 years, and to now be happy in sobriety, not just be sober. You know, I was sober at different parts of my life, but I was miserable, man. So to now be happy in my recovery is such a huge deal. So if you're not there yet, if you're struggling with addiction, I hope you can look at me and say, wow, I hope I'm there someday, because he is happy. And that's the only thing I try to convey in this number 3 here, is that it took me a long time. It took me a lot of years to get to this point, but now that I'm here, I don't think I'd change any of it. You know, I don't think I would have gotten to this level of happiness and contentness without going through everything that I did, because I probably would have taken it all for granted. So happy in sobriety, happy in recovery of all types, mental health, whatever you might be going through, it's all possible. So that was a wonderful number 3. Let's check out number 4. Now this one I wanted to do an unplanned break. As soon as I saw this image, I knew I had to put something of my own in here. Some of you know from the last video that I did a stint in jail. That's maybe a video for the future, but today I wanted to talk about somebody I met in jail, and that was one of the correctional officers, who was always so kind to me. And then even when I left and I finally got sober and I finally got my life together, she kept in touch and kept messaging me words of encouragement. So we're gonna do a short little take of that. I wanna show you exactly what she's been sending me. All right, let's take a look at what she's been writing me. This was right around the time I started to get known on Imager. She found out what Mr. Puckett was and that it was me, and put 2 and 2 together and just continued these amazing messages. This one says, "Make no mistake, there are some evil people in this world, but I am not their judge. I am their caretaker. But you, sir, you are one of my favorite stories. You're one of the most pleasant people to see every day." Now remember, this is in jail, like the least pleasant place ever. "Even when your struggle was at the worst, you never complained. We were all in awe of how you handled yourself. You had a village behind you, cheering you on for the very beginning." And I just started bawling out, crying. I had all of this acceptance that I didn't even know about in one of my lowest points of my entire life. And she continued to say, "Now I just needed to reach out and tell you that you are amazing. Having seen you at complete rock bottom and now rise above all odds makes my heart so full. I told you back then that you were a great person, but you have gone above and beyond. You're changing the world and healing hearts just by being the real you. Stand proud, my friend. I wish everyone could have this experience. Like I said in the past, just get rid of the toxic people in your life. Look at the goals and the people you have met just by doing that. Have an amazing day. I am so honored to say I saw your climb." And I mean, I can't put into terms just how special that was to read, because I was still struggling so bad that first year of recovery, and even the second year of recovery. I mean, the whole first year I woke up and just by habit would reach over for a half gallon on my nightstand, and it wasn't there because I was sober. And it's just such a terrible way to start your day, and a terrible way to look at recovery too, because I was looking at all the things that I couldn't do rather than all the things that I could do now. So to have this person who saw me at my absolute rock bottom and never saw me before that. She met me at rock bottom and has this job where she normally does that. She sees people at their absolute lowest in jail, and then for her to stay in touch with me after all this time, and we're still Facebook friends and we still talk, it's just it is so amazing to have somebody like that in your corner. Even if I never see her again, I love her to death. So Miss Good, thank you. Thank you so darn much. After this unplanned break, let's go check out the next wholesome thing. All right, number 5, embarrassment is the cost of entry. If you aren't willing to look like a foolish beginner, you'll never become a graceful master. I can certainly relate to that here on YouTube. I know my videos are pretty rough around the edges. I tweeted about this the other day. It makes it so much more special that people actually tune in to watch them, because there's really no production value at all, especially to some of these other amazing YouTube accounts out there. So I appreciate you guys so much, but I hope they're getting a little bit better each time. And I can relate to that in the form of anxiety too, and how much anxiety I have before I go out and try something new, and how it gets less and less and less every time. And that's maybe making new friends, trying a new sport, whatever it is. We also talked about a little bit last week how 2020 is not going to change in 2021 unless you do something to change it, unless you're trying new things and putting yourself out there and expanding your limits, whether that's your mind or your social situation or whatever it is. You're not going to become a graceful master unless you're a foolish beginner. And even if you don't want to become a master, you know, we have to keep trying new things. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck in the same position. So if there's something that you're scared about doing and you've never been able to do it, I encourage you not only to put it in a comment below so we can talk you into doing it, but also going out there and just giving it a shot, whether that gets seen by people on YouTube or on Reddit or whatever it is, or if it's just something you want to do for yourself and you've always just been too nervous to do it. Let's do all the things that scared us in 2020. Let's do them all in 2021 and see how much better our life is at the end of this year. I absolutely love it. That's perfect. That's a great number 5. Let's go check out number 6. All right, number 6. One day, soon, we will go out to a cafe with a friend and then sit carefree in a cinema, and what would have once been a totally mundane afternoon will now be a wonderful experience. We will be aware of all the luck we never saw. That is fantastic, and you know what? I have the perfect place to record my response. Let's get out of here and let's go see what it is. Now, if there's one thing I've learned from this pandemic, it's definitely how much I was taking for granted before this all started. Even simple, fun things that I love to do every single year, like go to a football game, that now I can't do. Now, we have 2 ways we can look at this issue. We can say, darn the pandemic, frick everything that's happening because it's not allowing me to have the fun I want to have. or we can look at all the things we took for granted before it and then cherish them once we're allowed to do it again. The simple things like this meme said, coffee shops, going to the movies, hanging out with a large group of friends, or even just going for a long run without a face mask on. It's all these beautiful things that before were such common parts of our life that we didn't think twice about how to cherish them, that now moving forward, we 100% should. So don't freak out and go mad over all the stuff you can't do. Appreciate what you can do now, and then when everything opens back up, you'll know exactly what to do and how to cherish every single moment you have. All right, number 7, hard to swallow pills. Your past mistakes don't define you. Boy, is that something easy to say, but hard to live, right? Especially for me, because I think I focus on my mistakes a lot more than my successes, especially in my past. I did a lot of cool things in 2020, a lot of things where I was able to help people for the first time in my life, but I still keep focusing on all the bad parts of 2020 now, especially Imager and all the hate that happened there, or Mr. Puckett dying, or whatever it might have been, are so small in comparison to all the amazing things I was able to do and to find these dogs. But that's still what I focus on. So it's very hard to live your life like your past mistakes don't define you. I am starting to learn it a little better now. Now there's one thing that kind of does, it doesn't define me, but it affects me so much, and that's me trying to find a job now. And I have, for the first time in my life, a criminal record. At the end stage of my addiction, I did a short stint in jail, and that is just haunting my employment right now. But besides that, I think all of the mistakes I made in my past have actually come back tenfold into good things. Now, all of these fundraisers and supply drives, and none of this stuff would I have done had I just kept living my normal, happy, middle-class life that I was in as a child. I had to go through all of this pain and strife to be able to want to give back, to be able to want to rescue and save little puppy lives, and it just, I don't know, you have to look at them not as the mistakes you made, but everything you learned from them. And I know that's super corny, but hopefully me giving this example of myself will make it a little less corny, that if I never went through homelessness and addiction, I'd probably just still be in my hometown working at a gas station doing nothing, and none of you guys would have ever heard of me. We never would have had the free pizza dude. I never would have rescued dogs, and I would have just lived a real boring, mundane existence. So I can now look at all the mistakes and regrets that I have in my past and see what they've done for my present, and they've done much more good than they have bad. So that's a great number 7. I love that. Let's check out the next one, see what we have to say. All right, number 8. I'm trans and I transitioned almost 5 years ago. My family has been slow to come around, but this year my uncle made a family tree for my grandparents and included my new name on it. What a special feeling that must be. I can't relate to that 100%, but I love to see family inclusion, especially when it's LGBT related. That's awesome. That is a fantastic one. My family always did accept me, I guess, up until my addiction, and then of course we had all types of problems, as most families do when somebody's suffering with addiction, but they stood by my side the entire time, and they're still here. I've talked about them in these videos before. They live up in Minnesota, and it's been, I think, 2 years now since I've seen them, so it's been a long time. I don't drive, so it's pretty hard for me to get up there, and they don't travel too well at their age. So Mom and Dad, I know you're watching, I love you, and that's a great one. Let's check out the next wholesome thing. All right, number 9. Destroy the concept that your teen years are supposed to be fun, and once you hit 25, you're old and it's over. Some of us had to heal from trauma during our teen years and early 20s and would like to begin a good life without constantly being told it's too late. I have to agree and kind of giggle at that, because I mean, 20s, I was well into my 30s and staying on my parents' couch and still looking, trying to get a real job again after 4 years on the street and having nothing. And even still at this point, I'm 35 years old, and you guys have seen my garage studio. I probably own a whole lot less than your average 35-year-old American, but I'd like to think I'm a whole lot more happier because I actually appreciate what I have. If I had this studio and this beautiful city and these 2 dogs and that was it, back in my 20s, I certainly would have taken it for granted and not been happy with my life at all. So it kind of took me hitting rock bottom to be able to see how good I can have it with so little. And that's 30 years old. I mean, that's nothing. I still have, what, X amount of years left. What's the average age? 80 years old or whatever it is. I'm just getting started. So I guess if I'm an example and I can come off my parents' couch and come off the street and come off drugs and all these things in my 30s, then I fully encourage you to do whatever scares you. If that's asking this person out on a date or starting a new sport or applying for a job you're not sure if you're qualified for, go for it, because you should never be told that it's too late, no matter what age you are. So that's a fantastic reminder at number 9. Let's go check out the next wholesome thing. All right, number 10. This is a reply on my own channel. Look at that. This is from Amber. I just had the most loving conversation with Abe. That's me. He's just as sweet as he is online. This is another too pure for the world person. We must protect and preserve him. The world needs him and his beautiful babies to be around. Thank you for lifting my spirits. Been a rough few years from me. Much love from Lakewood, Amber. This came about because I made a Happy Holidays video, I think on Christmas or Christmas Eve, and I put a phone number in there. So if anybody wanted to reach me or if anybody was having a lonely holiday, they could. And I didn't really think anybody would use it, to be quite frankly with you, but she did, and I think I had 24 calls that night. And the next day, unfortunately, was the Nashville bombing, so the phone got shut off. We didn't have service for a couple of days, so if you did call and I didn't answer, I greatly apologize. I meant to answer as many as I could, but maybe 24 people called in, and I got to speak to so many of you that night. It was so beautiful to hear from you. And nobody called and just gave a list of their problems. Everybody just called and wanted to see how I was doing. And it was such a refreshing experience to be able to talk to some of you on the phone and to hear your voice, especially Amber. Thank you so much for giving me a call. And we'll do more things like that in the future, whether it's getting a phone number every other week so you guys can reach me, or starting a Discord server. I don't really know, but anything we can do to make this feel more like a community, I would love to do it. So thank you guys for calling in. Thank you, Amber. Thank you, everybody. That was number 10. Let's check out what number 11 is. All right, number 11. Even if next year is just like this year, I won't be. Even if 2020 doesn't change, I will. Short and to the point, that's perfect. We spoke about this on my subreddit a little bit, that New Year's Eve and New Year's Day is not a time of change. It's a time for change. It's not a time where everything magically changes around you. It's not a time where anything inside you changes. It's a time for you specifically to make those changes. Now, if you're going through 2021 with the same thoughts and the same actions as 2020, you're going to get the same results. We talk about this in recovery, that insanity is doing the same thing over and over, but expecting different results. So now that it's a new year, nothing is going to change unless you change it. You need to be different if you want to move forward. You need to push the envelope. You need to try new things, and hopefully everything will work out for you perfectly. So that was number 11. Let's take a look at number 12. All right, number 13. Let's see what we're working with. We have an Ask Reddit post. The question was, what historical fact makes you cry? We got the top comment here that says, I learned about this in a Dan Carlin podcast. During the German-Soviet War, there was a Red Army soldier who sang each night with a hauntingly beautiful voice. His comrades would give each of them their tea rations and scarves to protect his larynx. One night, he couldn't sing because he had gotten sick. A German soldier crawled across no man's land and tossed something to the Soviet trench. The Soviet soldiers thought it was a grenade. However, it was a package containing a letter asking if the singer was okay and if he needed medicine. A truly heartwarming moment in an otherwise horrific front. That is beautiful. I mean, wholesomeness in the least wholesome situation ever, war, that I can't claim to know too much about. I can only imagine no man's land is the area where you could definitely get shot or killed, and this guy crawled across just to make sure that the other person was okay. And I think that's beautiful that they're in a place where you expect them to hate each other, right? You expect it to be just a boiling pot of hate of this country hates this country, and that's why they're fighting and killing each other. But obviously that's not always the case. There is some camaraderie there, that they're all out there in the muck together going through these terrible experiences. So to have one wholesome come out of it, that is beautiful. I love it. All right, we'll check out the next wholesome thing. Let's see what we got. All right, number 13. My son asked for a new Xbox controller for Xmas. Didn't think about why he needed a new one until he opened it up and got all excited because now his sister could play games with him. He didn't want the controller for himself. He wanted it so they could play together. That is pretty cute. I can't relate to that on a number of levels because I certainly don't have children and I probably never will. But I think it speaks to the theme that doing something for somebody else feels so much better than doing something for yourself. And it's a shame that we really only talk about this during the holidays instead of all year long. But so if you have somebody out there, you know, who's struggling and maybe all they need is a meal to brighten their day or somebody to sit down and listen to their problems. We talk and think about our own problems so often. Just take a moment to get out of your own head and listen to somebody else's problems, because you'll be able to relate to them, and then you'll make them feel like they've got a weight off their shoulders too. So you're kind of killing two birds with one stone there. We just need to get out of our own problems and help somebody else with theirs. What's the old line we used to say all the time was, if you need a hand, reach out. And if you don't, go grab a hold of someone else reaching. And that's whether that's an Xbox controller, a meal, or listen to somebody's problems. Let's do it this week, and we'll come back and talk about it next week. That's great. Let's see what the next one is. All right, number 14. We have our first cartoon. Remember 2020? Yep, it was awful. Worst year of my life. I think a lot of people will say that about 2020. And then we have two dogs that say, remember 2020? Yep, my human spent every day with me. Best year of my life. That's fantastic. I guess these two are technically both pandemic dogs, getting them both this year. She was a little bit before everything really hit. I adopted her in late February, the day Mr. Puckett passed away, as you all saw in my last video. And PJ came about in May, and that was such an interesting experience to go to a dog shelter in a full mask and to not shake hands or do anything. It was still kind of the start of everything where I didn't even have masks yet of my own and was just not going out in public at all. So to go there and to meet everybody at that shelter who was so kind, and I Am Lumberzack on Imager, he's the one who originally posted PJ to say, hey, look, Mr. Puckett, this looks like your old dog. There were so many people involved in Z Heart that helped me pick them up. There were so many people involved with helping me get these dogs on the right track, not only just getting them out of the shelter, but helping me raise them too. And I wouldn't change 2020 for all the money in the world, even if I do most notably look back on all the terrible things that happened. I hope to one day look at 2020 as the best year of my life, because I got these two amazing dogs and started a YouTube channel where I could show them off a little bit more. So that's fantastic. Remember 2020, best year of my life. I love that. All right, we're getting close to the end. Let's check out the next wholesome thing. All right, number 15. I noticed that our lovely janitor gets treated like an outcast, so I made sure to drink my coffee with him daily in front of the gate. Today I was in a hurry to get to my office, so he came to my office with a cup of coffee and awkwardly goes, "Thank you for being my friend." What a great story. I've talked about on this channel that one of my biggest fears is not being accepted. And that's something I grew up with, especially with Tourette syndrome, and then going into addiction and everything else and mental health issues, is that I never think that anybody accepts me, right? So I often think that my friends don't want me around, and I know that's a very common way to feel, that the people that love us might not necessarily love us do. So inclusion has been a big part of my life, to include other people in what I'm doing and to make sure they know that I love them, because oftentimes I don't feel that way. And that was a big part about leaving Imager too, that was the place I was most accepted in my entire life. More than my family, more than any friend group I've ever had, more than sports or whatever it might have been. Imager was my place of acceptance, where I could put anything up and people were gonna love it, you know, and love me too. And it was such an amazing feeling that I could open up that app every day and be accepted. So when that changed, it really turned my whole world upside down, because now all of a sudden I had nowhere that I was accepted. So it was so much more than just leaving a platform. It was so much more than staff just inciting all this hate. It turned into the one place where I could go to be accepted I no longer had. So that has been helpful with this channel, by all means, to have people watch these. And I've gotten very, very few negative comments, which is a very nice thing, that people come by, and some people don't even watch the videos first. They'll just come by and comment right away, "Nice job," or "I love this," or "I'm excited to watch it." So thank you guys so much. I know Annie Trout is one of them. I see there is one of my first commenters every day. So whatever you guys can do to make someone else feel more accepted, it's going to be such a huge deal to them, and it's such a little thing for you to do. So find your janitor and get him a cup of coffee. I love it. That's a great number 15. Let's check out number 16. I love you. All right, number 16. A parent's love for their child. A year after my granddaughter was born, my daughter was telling me how wonderful her toddler is, how smart she is, and all around how lovable she is. She then said, quote, "I don't think I could love anyone as much as I love my daughter." Then she paused for a moment as realization washed over her face. "Dad, is this how much you love me?" Bingo, kiddo. Now you know. That's fantastic. I love my parents. I know they're out there watching. I love you guys. I haven't seen you in almost 2 years now. And I know that during my teen years and well into my addiction in my 20s and early 30s that I did not treat them with the utmost respect. I was definitely a difficult child. And I know my parents, you know, all of our parents were teenagers at one point. They know a little something about teenage angst and rebellion, but that continued for me for, you know, a decade and a half longer than it does for most people. So this is a good reminder to call your parents today and tell them you love them, and I'll do the same. And if you have children out there, just realize that they'll go through the same thing too, but they're gonna love you no matter what. So this was a beautiful one. Let's go check out the next wholesome thing. All right, number 17, life pro tips, one of my favorite subreddits. If someone is going through a hard time, don't call and ask, "How can I help?" Instead, suggest some things you are willing to do, like, "Can I pick up some groceries for you? Can I walk your dog for a few days? Can I send over a casserole or babysit for your kids?" That's fantastic. I guess I've never really thought about that. I'm part of that "how can you help" or "how can I help" crew. That's one of my lines for sure. And most people just turn that down because I think most people need a whole lot more help than they're really willing to ask for. Now that includes both mental health and depression and things like that, but also with food and toiletries and things like that they may need. So I think that's a really good idea. Instead of being so broad with it and saying, "How can I help?" and overwhelming somebody who needs so much help, to be a little bit more direct and say, "Can I help and send you some food? Do you need some groceries? Do you need somebody to talk to?" I think is one of the big ones I've found through the thousands of messages I've gotten, is that people just need someone to talk to. Certainly there are other financial factors that may play into that they may need something else, but that's a good one. Instead of asking, "How can I help?" let's be a little bit more direct and offer what we're willing to do. That's fantastic. That's a great number 17. We're almost to the end here. Let's check out number 18. All right, number 18. When my dad passes a person, he always waves and asks, "How are you doing?" As a kid, I thought he knew everyone, but he was just being kind. I do it too. Today on a walk, we saw a stranger and my 4-year-old daughter waved and said, "How are you doing?" You guys, I just saw third generation kindness. That is cute. It reminds me of my own father too, who would say hi to, it didn't matter if you were in the, you know, in the checkout line or out on the street or even 3 in the morning, whatever it was, he was gonna say hi to you. And that kind of kindness I don't really see so much now that I'm in big cities. I grew up in all these tiny little cities, and now here in Nashville and living in Seattle and LA and all these big places I've been in the last 15 to 20 years, it's not commonplace to say hi to somebody on the street, and definitely not commonplace to ask how somebody is doing. Now here in Nashville, I live not downtown, so I have more of a community feel. I know my neighbors a little bit, and they know me at least as a guy with the 2 dogs who's always out and about making videos now, but it's a nice feeling of community for sure that you just don't get in downtown areas, and maybe we should make that commonplace again, because it's not a crime to ask somebody how they're doing and to try to brighten their day. I mean, that's what this channel is all about, not only trying to brighten people's days, but encouraging other people to do the same. And sometimes all it takes is just a hi or a hello, and that's especially when you're in a community or you're in a school or you're in an area where you see the same people all the time. It's nice to feel like somebody recognizes you, because a lot of times in my past I felt like a ghost, especially while homeless, or even just struggling with anything. When people pass you on the street, you wonder if they even see you. So try to brighten somebody's day today, and especially if you're in a community, if you're in a small neighborhood and you don't know your neighbors, it's a perfect time to bring them some muffins or some cookies and just introduce yourself. It's my favorite thing to do when I move to a new area. So 3rd generation kindness. If you're not there yet, start 1st generation kindness, and we'll see how it goes from there. I love that number 18. All right, let's check out the next wholesome thing. Number 19 is next. All right, number 19. Let's see what it has to say. I know we are in the yearly recap phase on social media, and everyone is announcing their biggest wins. But please don't compare yourself and your progress to others. If your biggest achievement was just staying alive, then that's a win too. And I couldn't agree more. We see the best of everyone's life on social media, right? And that includes me and includes this channel. You see me during the daytime and happy-go-lucky and interacting with my dogs and happy strangers, but you don't see what I do at night, which is eating cheese puffs in my underwear and watching football. And not that there's anything negative about that, but that's not certainly anything I would put on social media to say, look at me, look at how awesome this is. So comparing your real life and all the struggles you go through to the people online who are only putting their best lives out there is just gonna bring you negative feelings. So instead of looking at somebody, especially on social media or even your immediate friend group, and feeling down because maybe they've achieved more than you, they have more successes than you, is not gonna do you any good either. So on the flip side, if you see somebody that's struggling with that and maybe they reach out and they're talking about how awesome your life is, this is something you can relate to them because perhaps they're feeling down too, seeing how good you have it on social media. So it's a two-way street here. If you need a hand, reach out, and if you don't, then go grab a hold of someone reaching, and whatever you do, don't compare your life and your struggles to others, especially on social media. So that's number 19. We got one left, guys. Let's see what number 20 says. All right, we are at number 20. We have one more to go. Thank you so much for sticking around and watching this. Number 20 says, kind of cool to think someone somewhere is having the best day of their life today. Someone is hearing "I love you" for the first time today. Someone is going to get the job of their dreams today. Someone received good news today. Tomorrow could be your best day, so keep going. That is a fantastic way to end it. We've talked about looking back and only seeing the bad things, but we do that with the future too, and I know especially me. I don't look at this upcoming week or this upcoming month of all the possibilities I could have. I often look at it like, what is gonna go wrong this week? What challenge, what hurdle am I gonna have to climb this week or this month? When really I should be asking myself one simple question, and that's, what if everything goes perfectly? Instead of what if everything goes wrong? It actually reminds me of a clip from The Simpsons that turned into a popular GIF that Bart says that this is the worst day of his life, and Homer comically comes in and says something to the effect of, no, it's the worst day of your life so far. And as funny as that is, I feel like we need to inverse that, because we can remember all of our amazing days, and sometimes it's easy to think that our best days are behind us, but we can say that same line just in our favor and say that that wasn't the best day of your life. That was the best day of your life so far, and we have so much to look forward to and so many amazing things in front of us that we can't even fathom those things yet. So I hope in a year or two we'll look back and say, wow, I can't believe that I was so worried about 2021 because it turned into all these amazing things and all these incredible things happened. So that is a fantastic place to leave it. 2021, Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you so much, not only for checking out the video, but for everybody that actually stayed to the end. You are the only reason I'm making these videos. If you weren't watching these and you weren't watching them to the end, I'd probably just be laying on my couch watching soccer right now, and I love doing this. I love communicating to all of you, and I love you communicating back in the comments. This is a very enriching process for me, and I'm so happy that you're taking the ride as well. So from the Puckets and from me, we will see you next time on whatever big thing we decide to do next. Have a beautiful day, everyone.